And I totally forgot to start recording, so we just missed the whole Innovators DAO part of this section, but that's okay. Let's move on to the other topics we have. So, Papa Bear, you talked about the Tokyo region and new areas. What do you want to elaborate on your topic a little bit and what your question was?
Well, I mean, it was really more directed towards you, since you now are operating an orchestrator there. Just what your goals are and hopes or reasoning behind it.
Sure. Uh, yeah. So the the theory behind it was right now, the pools, orchestrator, ingest nodes are all based on where Livepeer ingest nodes are, which is fine because we're, they're the biggest broadcaster and we want to service them reliably. But yeah, Livepeer Inc. Doesn't have global coverage. They're kind of, they have 7 ingest nodes, or 8, I think, which is great. But as for global coverage on the Livepeer network, we want to be able to supply, coverage outside of those areas. And so I spent some time researching, major hubs on the globe where we could be lacking and where we would want, I think, coverage. So the oceanic countries and like Australia, the nearest ingest is Singapore, which I don't think is going to provide real time coverage for that area. And like, hey, I like the Aussies and the Kiwis, so why not provide them with the ability to join the network and contribute? So we launched one in Sydney, Australia. Tokyo was another one because there's actually quite a large Livepeer community and Web3 movement in general in Tokyo or in Japan. Japan is like super into Web3. And Japan is a really interesting place because they're one of the largest language barriers that I've ever been to. Like, I was actually blown away by the language barrier going to Japan compared to other countries. So I think Japan, we just don't hear about much, but they have an intense Web3 community. Um, and there's even a Livepeer like Japan Discord channel with just Japanese people. So yeah, it seemed natural to launch one in Tokyo and have good service in that area. And I think Brad also saw that trend. So if Brad, he's in the audience, if he wants to come and talk about this, but he believed he launched a stream tester in Tokyo as well. So yeah, Tokyo is just a big push, and I don't think it's close enough to. It's not close to Singapore. I think it's actually closer to LA than Singapore, and so like to go across the Pacific for transcoding also just doesn't make much sense. So yeah, launched one in Tokyo, hoping to get some adoption there. And then as for the rest, the Mumbai in India, I think that was a good place. I was thinking either Dubai or Mumbai, but I went with Mumbai just because of the availability of their VPSs. They're pretty inexpensive, and you can also do Dubai. I think the UAE is like another, like servicing the Middle East. I think would be really important. A lot of people there that, and the UAE is super modern and forward thinking when it comes to this stuff. And then Johannesburg, South Africa. Yeah, South Africa is a wonderful place. They are far away from just about everybody, so yeah, they deserve one for themselves. So that was the idea behind the 4 ingest nodes that the pool added. But I think there's a real want for Japan to get onboarded with Livepeer and get some adoption, because I think they're pretty heavy users of video. Like Japan is a heavy users of video. So if we could, and they're on the Web3 train, like they like this stuff. So I think it's a good market to just be present in.
And is
So
there
you're
any
running.
concern? Oh,
Sorry, go
sorry. Is there
ahead.
any concern about having enough capacity if someone were to come on in Tokyo and start using it? That you would. I mean, right now you're probably the only person servicing that area. Would you have the transcoder? Because I wouldn't want people be like, oh yeah, I wanted to use Livepeer, and then there's no transcoders there, or get a you know, have a bad experience. So is there any like, do you have enough transcoders there, or is that a thought, concern, anything along those lines?
No, I
I
don't have.
guess for any region, but I guess Japan seems like they would probably adopt it the first based on what you were just talking about.
Well, I mean, it's not like I'm lifting up the whole Japanese region, right? Like the Livepeer network will hopefully the default selection algorithm will pick transcoders that are reliably close and can perform. So I'm only one of 100 node orchestrators. But that being said, as for the pool, yeah, I like this. I'm the only one just to handle Brad's test streams to make sure it's all working. Otherwise, yeah, I'm waiting for my first Japanese transcoder to join the pool.
Right. I realize it's a chicken and egg thing. I mean, you don't put it there, no one's going to use it, and if someone can't use it, if there's nothing there. But I did notice that it seems like very few orchestrators are making the pool in Tokyo based on Brad's tests, and there's quite a bit of swapping going on over there. So it was just some thought of how uh, stable or what kind of user experience it would be.
Yeah.
And then,
But that's the exact question. Is the chicken and egg problem, right? Like,
oh yeah, no, I realize that.
yeah. So like, and if someone wants to come along and use Livepeer for global coverage of transcoding, like we can't just have random dark spots. So like, yeah, like I think like the whole point of inflationary LPT is to bootstrap the supply side, right? In its current state. Once we get like the Delta proposal, then it shifts a bit. But I mean, the entire purpose of LPT, fundamentally, the way it's incentivized is it bootstraps the supply side. So like, yeah, like I think the chicken and the egg problem is the chicken side first. Like we need to have global coverage before we'll get anyone to use the demand side. I do believe that. So yeah, the idea is I pay LPT for just uptime in the pool, so hopefully that will give enough people incentive to want to just connect their gaming PC to the pool and supply reliable transcoding for Japan for Tokyo, right? As well as the 4 other regions we launched. So that's that's the idea behind it, at least in theory.
No, cool. I was just curious to hear more about just kind of how you've answered it now, but I was just curious to hear how or what the thought was behind it. And sounds good.
Yeah, the lucky part about doing a pool setup is like the requirements to run an orchestrator node just standalone are very low, right? So to spin up like I'm thinking about like maybe by the end of this year, like maybe even spin up like 4 more and make it a little more dense, right? Like make it like I got a lot of funny enough, I have a lot of people in the pool from Mexico, but they all are connected to LA. So maybe it's worth spinning up like a Mexico City because there would actually be lots of supply there, but there'll be no demand. But that's fine, right? You gotta just gotta figure it out, right? So yeah, I mean, yeah, it's really tough right now because there's almost
Yeah,
no
maybe
demand.
maybe you have to pay transcoders double down there just because there will be so little work just to incentivize them.
Yeah, I mean, you know, if people are joining the pool to make a lot of money, like it's just like, well, we're just not there yet, right? Like, but we need those early adopters to say, hey, I like this movement, and luckily Livepeer doesn't take a lot of power energy consumption, and so hey, I'm willing to connect and provide this resource for almost no return, but also almost no cost. So, you know, for that reason, maybe we could actually achieve global coverage of highly reliable transcoding, before adoption comes. So that's the theory behind it. So, yeah, like Titan Node, I'll probably keep, a lot. It's like Singapore. Like at one point, I was kind of renting a VPS, like a GPU in Singapore to like supply GPU compute for the Singapore region. But it just was like, you know what? Like, I'm just going to let the pool be a pool. And if someone's near Singapore and wants to connect, great. If not, then it will just reject streams. So that's just the pros and cons of a pool. So yeah, I don't know. In that sense, I can spin up these single core 2 gigabyte RAM VPSs in all these areas. It comes out to something like $8 a month. So yeah, so I can spin up 4 of those, and it's not a huge cost. So why not spin up 20 or 30 and just give people the ability to join a pool in their area, right?
Actually, I'm just looking at the stream test right now. And do you have someone actually in uh, Japan, Tokyo, that's connected to the pool for you?
As of
I
like,
only I only ask because you have more swaps than anyone else. So I'm just wondering if this is if we're gaining anything here, or it's better just to let the network choose.
no, that is me transcoding in North America. So that's
Okay,
it's getting swapped because it's just not returning it fast enough.
I got it. All right, so it's just a matter of people adopting it, or transcoders
Yeah,
joining and
yeah.
adopting.
I just
Yeah.
need somebody in Japan to just connect and be like I got a guy in Sao Paulo, and he's just a beast. He just does. He's like hanging on. He's just like he's one guy, and he does everything fast. Like he's the fastest transcoder at almost the whole pool for Sao Paulo. Um, and he's killing it, right? And so, um, he's earning more than everyone else in the pool because he's got a monopoly on the one ingest node that only he's nearby, right? So, that's good for him. So, maybe someone else wants that opportunity as well. But because of that, I can tell you for sure that Sao Paulo is getting at least in our pool. He like anyone transcoding in Sao Paulo is getting like fast real time. He's 4 milliseconds away from the Sao Paulo ingest with about a gigabit internet, and like he's on 24/7. So like so Sao Paulo is getting some good service based on him. So I'm happy with that. So maybe we could do that with Tokyo as well. That's all.
Yeah, no, I get it. I'm a little jealous that you have a transcoder down in Sao Paulo.
Yeah. He's I'm very happy he's in the pool. He's very, very, very. He's a good guy. Great. Thanks for joining us, Cryptonarian. Cool. Yeah. Okay. Well, yeah. Any other comments or questions about or additions to like global expansion or the chicken and the egg problem?
Not from me. I don't know if you're asking me or everyone, but not
No,
from me.
just everyone. Yeah. Like, I mean, I just think that like obviously most of the work is being done in North America and Europe right now, which is great, and we have a ton of supply in those areas. But like, I think India is the most populated country on this planet, and we don't have an ingest node there, so it seems reasonable to put one there. That's my thought process behind it. And I also switched to latency routing instead of geolocation routing, as per Papa Bear's mentioning. I didn't switch to Cloudflare though. I just wanted to try Amazon Route 53 and see if it like would work. And it seems to be doing well, except for randomly New York gets routed to Frankfurt. So I don't know why or how that's happening, but that's not good.
That's the internet for you. That's definitely an issue that can come up. And it's obviously it's not ideal, but it's really bad if it switches in the middle of a stream. And I don't know if there's a way to stop that from happening because that causes bad things to happen.
It won't do it in the middle of the stream if you set your service address on the actual node to a static IP or a domain. if you have it set as the geolocating domain, it can switch midstream.
Got it.
So as long as your service address swaps to a stable IP, then it won't ever break the connection because of that. But the initial discovery request, which is on chain, my New York node, for some reason, it thinks that Frankfurt is closer than Vermont.
Well, it may have there may have been some network traffic, and it did actually get a quicker ping time or something like that. It's possible.
Yeah.
I mean,
Otherwise,
I mean that's pretty much how. I mean, that's how that logic works, right? It's the fastest responding.
I thought it was like, yeah, I don't know. I don't know how Amazon does it, but everything else looks good, like Singapore, Sao Paulo, like everything looks good except for New York. So I think I can put in like a particular rule to say New York State goes to this node regardless, and it overrides the latency rule. So that'll fix the Livepeer ingest node, but I don't think it'll. Yeah, I gotta pick my battles anyway.
Yeah, fair enough.
I didn't want to switch to Cloudflare. It was like too many instructions, and I was like, I haven't got this far yet. So there we go. Cool. Yeah. So yeah, I just think that as a community, we should be striving to get global coverage, especially for areas that are like really up to date, like Sydney, like Australia just got completely left out of Livepeer working for their continent. Like I don't think Australia is close enough to Singapore to do a good job. Like it's like a really far away. Yeah. So all the Aussies, sorry, but we are hopefully including you now. So yeah, join the network. Okay, cool. Well, we'll finish up with that topic. Another topic I had was around LensTube and this idea of Livestream. We were talking a little bit about it before the introductions. Mike, I have a question for you. You've looked into LensTube before. Would it be possible to fork it and to make like a live streaming version of LensTube?
Yeah, I mean, definitely. Like I said, I'd like to know a little bit more about how it's been probably 8, 12 months since I've touched uh, Lens protocol, Lens tube. So I'm definitely got your link. I'm going to take a look at it. I think it's definitely possible. They have you said the VOD functions there now, right?
Yeah, like LensTube is all VOD. And they have like subscriptions and accounts and everything already made, and a player that shows you all the comments and everything.
All right.
So like it's I think a lot of the functionality there is already built for something like a live streaming application, except for the comments, because they're not live, they're like posts. So people, but like that in itself you could just kind of put something in there. But yeah, I don't know, I just think take it and make it
So the live stream, would it then also, once it's offline, once you're finished with the stream, would it just become a post after that?
I don't know, it depends whether you want to record the live stream or not, because that like if you go to YouTube, all your live streams are saved, but like to what degree, because I don't know what LensTube does for, like they use IPFS for categorizing their videos, but I think LensTube just uses Studio for all their storage. So I believe that's all just S3 or whatever. So like I wouldn't
the Livepeer CDN.
Yeah, I wouldn't like. To be honest, I wouldn't like in Twitch. Most of your live streams are not saved on Twitch. I believe you have to like enable that, and it costs you extra or something. I don't know how Twitch exactly does it, but from my understanding, like we don't like you don't need like it's not a function that I would really actually prioritize. Just the live video part, I think, would be just like a good start.
And would you be going live from your browser, or would you be using like OBS?
OBS,
Okay.
yeah, just a auth key and just, stream input and just like you would with Twitch. Like I know with Twitch you can't, like Twitch and YouTube you can do browser, but that's all just like to make it easy for people to go live right away. Like if you just do an OBS style, like that would be totally fine. Like if you just did OBS stream keys with no recording on the back end, like no saving, um, that would be just a killer app in itself, I think, because then you could stream to your Lens audience, right? That's
But the lens side of it is like you would post basically a playback URL, right? And say, hey, I'm going live. And that post would have that URL, and then folks could click on it as they see it. When they click on it inside of Lens, inside the app, you would be able to just watch it. That's what you're
yeah. So the problem with
saying,
Lens,
right?
the problem with Lens post types right now is they don't have like an HLS or like a video live video specific post type. They only have an embed post type, which
Mm.
doesn't work on mobile. So actually the best way to do it would be like if you wanted to advertise to your audience that you were going live on Lens Lens, let's call it Lens Stream. Sure, Lens Stream. Would just to be make a generic post being like, "Hey everyone, I'm going live on Lens Stream. Click the link to go to the URL where you can watch it." And you would just go to the website because you can't actually embed any of the live video into Lens post types to show up on all devices. So yeah, like it would just be like a, but even then, like that's like an unnecessary feature. Like you just all you want is a live streaming application where like when you log into Lens, all your followers show up as like who's live streaming, right? That's all you want to see. Like you don't even need to like post it as a Lens. Like the live stream itself doesn't even need to be a Lens post at all. It can be completely separate from Lens, the actual live stream. It's just finding your followers on who's streaming and what they're doing. You want that in one place, right?
Yeah, yeah. I think I understand what you're asking for. I'll try to think through some possibilities.
Yeah, because Broadcaster was trying to do it where they were doing the embed type. So you would have the player in like an HTML kind of format, and then you would embed the iframe into the Lens post type, which worked except for like everyone on mobile can't see it, so it didn't work on mobile, which a lot of people are on mobile, so it's just like you couldn't watch the live stream natively on mobile. But like if you're watching a live stream, it doesn't necessarily have to be cross platform. You just want your followers to come with you, right? So
No, I got you. Interesting. I'm always fascinated by these use cases. I love to kind of twist the Rubik's cube a little bit, see if I can get something to line up.
because yeah, LensTube, they make it much more integrated with Lens, where the post type is of video, and that video you can watch it in any Lens app. So like it's like it's not LensTube specific. It's like once you post it as a video type, it shows up as that like across all apps. But there's just no live post type. So you'd have to just build your own little site that does the live portion of it, and then use the social graph of the lens just to find your followers, right?
Yeah, man.
So anyway, that was my idea, and where I would love to post these these water coolers and stuff like that. Now, actually paying for the transcoding and stuff, I don't know. Like, we'd probably just subsidize it until we figure out either a way for the platform to monetize it and then pay for it, or do something where you would say, you know, let the streamer pay for the infrastructure cost, and then they can treat it like a business where they just like figure out how to monetize themselves and like let them do it, you know?
Yeah.
So,
or send it through the Titan node pool at 0 pixel.
Yeah, well, that'd be a good way to get started. But
yeah, man.
Cool. Okay. Right on. Well, we've gone through those. Yeah, another topic is around the first segment, slow transcode. I know Brad is now in the audience. Brad, are you with us? Are you able to talk, or are you MIA? Love to know if you made any progress on the slow first segment transcode issue. Ah, here he is. Hello, good sir. I cannot hear you if you are talking. Oh, mic problems. Do you need to leave and come back? Or are you just plugging in different microphones right now? Mic problems are always a problem. He says, give me a minute. Okay, that's fine. While we're here, Jonas, are you with us? Would you like to introduce yourself at a topic if your mic is working? Jonas, are you with us? Oh, no worries. Does anyone else have any other topics they'd like to cover? Any topics or questions? Jonas is typing in chat. It's probably my phone. Sorry. No worries. Yeah, well, hopefully Brad will come in and we can cover this last topic, and then we'll sign off probably after that.
In the meantime, I'll throw one out just to fill some time. I saw that well, I guess I don't know if it was applied over the weekend, and then maybe I know there were some problems with the Explorer over the weekend, but Doug mentioned that there was a forum post about changing the way minutes are calculated on the Explorer. Has anyone seen that post? Or
I did see that too. There was a change. I think Pon pointed out there was some problem and they rolled it back. They were gonna, I guess they implemented some change.
yeah, I mean, it was hard to tell if I mean, just looking at the dashboard or the Explorer during that time, if it had gone through, because it's hard to tell. I have a hard time reading the Explorer minutes and stuff because they're too small for my old eyes. But I just wonder what people's thoughts are on having the minutes, how they're calculated, change, and not changing the older calculations. Is that going to throw people off that come to look at it? Is that a big deal? And is there something other than minutes that we should be showing there that, well, I guess I don't know what else you could show that would better reflect what the usage looks like. I've always had an issue with the minutes thing, just especially in the past, the way they didn't seem to really correlate too much to anything in real life.
They're derived as well. They're not actual values. So it's a derived based on some calculation.
Well, exactly, and they didn't seem to be very realistic or close to. what was actually going through in minutes. And again, a minute doesn't really mean a whole lot, even if it was accurate, if you're just saying a minute, because a minute of 240p is a lot different than a minute of, multi bit rate 1080, to 360. So it was just kind of that thought. I mean, I've always been a fan of pixels, but I know that gets real tricky because numbers get really big, people can't really relate to it, and I mean, I guess as it is now, it's it's based off of the ETH paid, so it could include work done that was not through Studio. I just didn't know if there's maybe like a way to maybe call it a compute unit and it equals a certain amount of something, and then just switch over to that, and it would be maybe easier to tell what's going on as far, or be more realistic, or so be a number that isn't necessarily I don't want to call it a fake number, but a number that isn't very accurate. Which I guess, as I say that, I don't know if a compute unit would be any more accurate either, if it's just still derived from the ETH. That's
Total
Yeah,
amount
yeah.
of
I'm not, no, sorry, Titan. I was just going to say, what about amount of data going through the network itself? Just because minutes, as you say, 480p is not weighing as much as 1080p or something like that. Just pure amount of data.
well, that the problem is that that isn't collected, on an open network. I mean, sure, if you're, right now, most of it could be, taken from Studio, but if you have broadcasters, they don't have to share that info. So I don't know where you'd get the amount of data that's being transferred.
Yeah, I didn't read his full post, but it was something like, do you want to give us an overview of what the post was? Do you remember?
Yeah, I mean, I read it and I still didn't understand exactly. I don't know if it really said how the calculations are going to be done, though.
Read it out loud if you want.
Yeah, sure.
So the old methodology used a combination of fee-derived minutes along with estimated pixel counts with Livestream ABR ladder. That is Livepeer Studio
that's
usage.
like when you do a multi-bit rate, basically, is what that.
Okay.
I mean,
and incorporated some redundancy or backup transcode due to the level of quality on the network required for reliable live streams. Yeah, because there's also backup and redundancy, so are those incorporated? This has fallen slightly out of date because of the number of factors, introduction of VOD, capabilities, additional broadcaster nodes, different usage patterns, less required redundancy due to high quality performance, right? So yeah, less redundancy, varying price points and bitrate ladders, right? Okay. So the new methodology. So these were all the old issues, right? The latest methodology, which will be deployed soon, will take these factors into account. Instead of making flat assumptions about the bit rates, which where Livestream dominated, it will take heuristic from observed Livepeer Studio usage and apply this generally to the usage on the network across the bees. Okay. Minutes estimated may go down because of the reduced redundant transcoding for backups, but they may increase because of the incorporation of VOD, blah, blah, blah. It is important to note that these estimates are moving target and become harder and harder or impossible, right? Which is, yeah, probably true. It's impossible to make reliable estimates as the diversity of broadcaster nodes and job types increase, as they pay different pricing, request different variations, live streaming, blah, blah, blah. None of which are observable on chain. The estimates get further off too. Those looking to gauge the growth or shrinking usage would be best served to look at the observable fees metric, though that would also become more accurate as price competition emerges on the network and services and are repriced in ETH due to fluctuating ETH price in denominated dollar terms. It's another issue, which is we're displaying it in USD terms, but it's denominated in ETH. So that's after the update goes live. Okay, we will use the old one, but by the minutes going forward, we'll point to the updated new methodology on the Explorer. I hope the estimated usage metric can still provide observers value despite the fact that it's imperfect. The tooltip on the Explorer link will post to the consuming metric. And so what they're doing is they're just basically saying, hey, Livepeer Studio is roughly how this metrics look, and so we will take that and paste it amongst what other broadcasters are doing and assume that they are roughly in line with our statistics, which is pretty imperfect.
It makes me kind of just wonder, is there even a need to put that on there? I hate bad data. So for me, I'm just like, I see that and I'm like, oh God. So you're going to take another estimate that isn't really mean a whole lot.
Yeah, like it's the only thing that's on chain that we can track, which is like observable, is ETH payments. And so like that can give us a gauge about demand, but it still can't give us a gauge because people can just flow ETH to themselves and inflate the amounts, right?
Even taking that out of it, if price is going to become a selection factor, which Hunter has hinted at or seems to be pushing for, that will also change how much work is done on the network for the amount of ETH paid out. Like, I mean, if let's just theoretically, if the fees we're able to charge are half of what they were, but we're still doing the same amount of work, that's also misleading to someone who comes and looks at it and goes, oh, look, now they're only paying this much ETH, which is still better than dollars. But again, that would be really hard to make any sense out of it. I mean, one thing if the prices stay the same, but with, if the amount you pay for the same amount of work changes, that number becomes very hard to use as to judge how much work is done on the network.
Yeah, I can see.
And again, if it goes down, I think it's going to make it can give a bad perception to someone who's looking at the protocol and goes, "Hey, look, how come they're now?" Even though it could be doing 1.5 times the amount of work, if we're getting paid half the amount for, for the same, or if we're getting paid half the amount, but we're doing an extra, I don't know, 10, 15%, it would look like there's less work on the network and there's less adoption on it. So it could be could give people looking at the Explorer the wrong impression of how well Livepeer is doing if it's improving.
So I actually think that the solution here is verifiable video. And I think last water cooler talk there was some discussion about proofs on transcoding work, which I think is like a primitive that we have to put in a stack of things like verifiable on-chain video. This is like a category of things, right? Verifiable video, and that in that actually like several things that you can classify, actions that can be classified, and in classifying those actions, we can disambiguate and target things like Sybil problems, feedback loops, but it also gives us more than one vector to analyze the network under. And it gives a whole bunch of other leverages and benefits that I could go into. But I think the solution to this problem in general is verifiable systems. And I posted some more thoughts for people. I know it's a bit hard to follow, and I don't want to start drawing diagrams, although I have plenty of diagrams. And this is, there are open questions in computational science that involve these issues. So it's non-trivial, but it's certainly valuable to build in this area. And it looks like you guys have already done a significant part of the front-loaded work. So it's about leveraging what you've already got here, I think. And it solves the problems that you're discussing, I think.
Yeah, well, thanks for the comment. That's really interesting. that could tie into like video provenance, right? Which is like verifiable originality of content. But yeah, it's an interesting problem. The current setup we have is like you can't fix the amount of work on the network problem easily. That's for sure. So yeah, the new Explorer idea is going to be a bit of a band-aid. So what we did, we were filling time for Brad to actually go through his topic. So we're going to come back around to the Explorer and the verifiable work topic. I know, Mike, you wanted to step in and say something, but I do have Brad here, and we were just killing time. Brad, is your mic working?
Hopefully.
There you go. Nice to see you.
I don't know if this is my topic, but
it's a topic. No. I imposed this topic upon you. So
okay, that seems more correct.
Yeah. So
we haven't made any like further progress, but the two things like that impact it are for first segment was the get orchestrator request, right? I guess let's call it three things. Just get orchestrator request. There's the 500 millisecond pool building time on that first segment. And then there's the actual transcoding. Me and Elite had some kind of weird slowdown on ours due to a system user without a home directory. But changing that fixed that problem and it gets us in line with everybody else. Because in my test, I collect some data on the first segment, and most people are in like a band of a few hundred, 500 milliseconds or so, maybe 700 in the first segment. But pretty much all of them are in a band, and they're pretty flat. So, but there are a couple that are slower. One of them is the known slow transcoding orchestrator. I think is CPU transcoding, but there's no other update really. Do you have any specific questions?
Yeah. So the issue you found around the first segment, did you actually solve it, or is this an unsolved thing?
We solved our problem, where we were returning our first segments on our EU node was returning like 1.8 seconds, and it was always 1.8 seconds. And I don't think Elite has gotten to the point of getting through the code yet on trying to see why that might be happening. Because in my specific setup, I specify a data directory in my launch parameters because I don't want it to be in a hidden folder. I like to be able to get to it easy and see it, right? And for some reason, a user with a no home directory was causing that slowdown. Don't know why specifically yet, but
did that get you back in line with the rest of the segments, or was the first segment still slower?
No, first segment's still going to be slower. You have to add 500 milliseconds to the first segment every time because of the pool building. So when I run a test now, like the testing apparatus I have runs on the same server, right? So it's basically the least possible issues or problems you could have. The first segment will return in about 800 milliseconds. The rest of them return in like 120, 150 milliseconds. So the difference there, a lot of that difference is that 500 milliseconds.
And that's even after you have a home directory built for this user. So
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you fixed your problem, but you didn't fix the problem around like getting that first transcode time even with the rest of the transcode times.
I think a way to shave off that 500 milliseconds is kind of keeping a pool built from start, or there could be two ways of doing it. One is that update that I had for the get orchestrator request, if that gets pushed into go Livepeer to shorten up that time to get those back, so we can lower that pool building to say 200 milliseconds. That'll increase the real-time speed that you get back that first segment. Or is the go Livepeer is modified somehow to keep the pool built offline. So it's keeping a pool build outside of when you get a stream transcoding request.
Oh, are you saying that delay is not actually the transcoder, but the orchestrator waiting to build the pool at the 500?
It's the broadcaster building the pool, but yeah, there's setup time.
Wait.
And each GPU is going to have a little bit of delay setting up the task in the GPU to transcode. Right, there's still going to be something there, and that's going to vary GPU to GPU, but it shouldn't be too bad.
No, but no, because even on the broadcaster side, like in my pool, the first segment is always slower coming back from a transcoder, and there's no pool building process from a broadcaster.
How much slower though?
Like the exact amount that gets slowed down on like up to 500, 800 milliseconds, like even sometimes like a second slower.
Interesting.
So in my pool, funny enough, so I strike people based on them transcoding too slow, but I have to disregard the first segment because it's always slower. And that's not a broadcaster. That's just an orchestrator getting it back from a transcoder.
I'm going off of my EU tests because it's all run on the same server. So it's just like there's no other environmental factors, right? Or it's as limited environmental factors as possible. First segment returns full boat. This is from the test sending the HTTP request to get it transcoded and it all the way back. So this is the streamer getting it back. It's 800 milliseconds.
Right.
And
but
the next ones are like 150 milliseconds or something.
I don't. In that you said, I don't think that includes the pool building on the broadcaster side. Does it?
I think in my test it does because it's really testing full time.
Because I get the exact same result with an orchestrator connected to a transcoder. Like,
well, it could be a couple things. That could be the delay of just setting everything up. On the first segment, it creates like a CUDA context on the GPU to start the transcoding. Then it'll just reuse that as long as it's open, as long as the stream still goes.
Because
I don't know if the slowdown on our node was because of the CUDA context or not, or if it was IO type related or hard drive related. That's one thing Leet's going to look at.
Okay, so here's an example. So this is literally the latest stream that I just got. Here we go. So here's a transcoder in the pool who does quite well. So you have these 2-second segments. So the durations here, you can see 1.99. There's 2-second segments. The first segment was come back in 1.03, and the next are at 0.34, 0.35. So that's happening from the orchestrator getting it back from the transcoder. So that's not including a discovery pool, unless it is. Is the orchestrator building a discovery pool for?
No, not in the same. It's not the same.
No, it's just randomly picking. It has a different selection process. It's instant.
I think. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Brad.
So in this scenario, Titan, this is gonna be just the transcoder's delay of setting up the transcoding on the GPU.
Right. Yeah, because I'm seeing that
every segment's going to have the upload and download, so that's going to be pretty much consistent, and that probably attributes the variation in all these segments, right? And it's got to be the CUDA context on that transcoder.
Right. Because again, here's like another stream that I only came in for 2 segments, but like the first segment is regularly much longer, and I'm trying to figure out how to. So that's the CUDA core like spinning up. That's your GPU trying to fire up, ready to do the work.
Yeah, that's at least part of it. I don't know how long that usually should take. I don't have the setup to test that.
Right. Because that's I think the delay that I'm worried about, right? Because now that we fixed the ping distance thing, we could say, well, we could reduce that down to 200 milliseconds, and that 200 milliseconds is at the cost of figuring out who's going to do this stream, right? We can say goodbye to 200 milliseconds all the time because guess what? we need that time to figure out who to send the stream to. There's just no ifs, ands, or buts around that. But to have an 800 millisecond delay in the CUDA cores spinning up, that's unnecessary, right? Like that's
I think so. I don't think it should take that long, but I don't really have data to support that opinion. Just
right. So you said when you created the home directory, that didn't actually fix the problem amongst this, like the actual transcoder itself being slower. That was just something to do with your.
Well, it's and on that box, the GPU is on the same machine as the orchestrator, so that home directory fix was really on the transcoder side.
Yeah, but you still had the delay, that 800 milliseconds.
I have about a 500 millisecond delay now.
Right. Yeah. But
I can let me look and see what I can pull from mine, and then we can compare.
And Titan, it's probably going to be longer on a split setup than on a local, but I think we're talking about the same thing. It's just it takes long. There is some setup involved on that transcoder for the first segment that takes longer.
Yeah.
What do you? Can you send me what you see from my transcoder on your pool?
Yeah.
Not right now, but just sometime. So I'm just curious because that's run on a Linux box that I know has a home directory. It's all that'll help. That might help me a little bit because then I can look at it too from my side.
There you go. Okay, so I'm looking at yours. Here's an example of here's a live stream that you did the last hour. So I'll just take the first 4 segments. So here's this. Those are your durations. 3, 4. Okay, these are your transcodes. So that's there. That's you got a 2-second segment back in 0.71, and then the rest of them are 0.23, 0.38.
So mine's 500 milliseconds compared to 700 above, which is interesting.
And then even your here's an interesting one. Here's an interesting one. This is a 10-second segment. So here's another one you did. It's 10 seconds. Your first one came back in 1.06, and the rest of them are coming back around 0.6, 0.5.
So mine are going, what is that? 400 to 500 milliseconds first segment delay. Does that seem about right?
Yeah. 4 to 500 millisecond delay.
You should compile this so we can kind of see what the range is on your transcoders.
Oh yeah, I could. Yeah. I could come up with an average, or I could do that. Yeah, I can look at every stream you've ever done in the pool, and just I have all the durations and yeah, I came up with some really good logging, so I can see what you were transcoding, where it came back from, what your durations were, everything else. But they all they're all roughly in line with what I've just shown you. So just trying to figure out what that first segment is all about. But here's a weird one where you actually, I think, lost the stream in the pool. Almost. You almost lost it. Because you did your third segment in 2 seconds. It spiked back up.
Yeah, that is strange.
But that happens sometimes. And that was a 720p stream. The single 720p out of New York. So, anyway, yeah, just trying to figure out that first segment. It's just really bizarre. Would be really nice because in the pool setting, it really, a lot of people just can't get that first segment back fast enough. Oh, here's one. Oh, Brad, here, this is actually a really bad one for you. This is the last one. I'll stop sharing it after this.
Might as well bookend it. Got ones at 0.23, 0.38.
This one is about as bad as it gets, and I've seen this a few times in the pool. Here we go. That's the last one. I'm not spamming the chat, but this one at a 2-second segment, you got it back in 4.73 seconds.
And then look at the next one: 0.19, 0.68, 0.62.
Yeah,
that's a strange one.
Yeah, and then that one. So that was a 240p, 360p, 480p, 720p. Yeah, so it's like a standard 4. But like, it's weird because you're doing it so fast. But the first like 20 segments. Oh yeah. So, it gets even worse. You start doing 5-second. You actually got striked out on this one. Funny enough. If I keep going with it. So like, yeah, I just don't understand like what's happening here. Like why is it? So yeah, this one, you even like spiked up to 5.3, 5.03. So I don't know what's going on there, but
there is a lot of variability that's hard to track down.
Yeah. And I can't tell if that's like it, but the thing is that can be a networking issue. Like,
yeah,
because
Do you think? Oh, sorry.
Go ahead, Flo.
Do you think it's from HTTPS uncheck, the first one? Because when you start a connection, you do HTTPS uncheck. Maybe it will add some latency.
could be.
Do we have this problem with O/T, like orchestrator and transcoder combined?
Yeah, I think it's still slower.
I mean, the first segment definitely takes longer.
Yes.
No matter what.
Is it making an HTTP connection with itself with an O/T?
No, it's a whole different workflow.
Yeah. But from the network point of view, you have some latency for the first connection. When you do like a ping to a server, you will see that the first ping is more longer.
Sure.
It's because it needs to pass all the firewall, and after it will bypass the firewall because you have the connection already marked on the firewall. So all this stuff will add for sure latency. And there is a HTTPS uncheck for the first connection too. So that's why I was tell about quick or WebSocket connection, because WebSocket will keep connection online. So don't know about all of this.
Is it making
HTTP provides persistent connections as well. You can definitely have keep alives on an HTTP connection.
Yes.
I think most of the stuff is typically the code has. That's right. The code has to be written to pull the HTTP connections, meaning something in the background keeps the connections open and keeping them alive with pinging back and forth to make sure they stay alive. So when a stream does hit, the connection's already active. You don't want to have to pay a setup cost for the HTTP connection. But I don't know. There might not be any pooling in here. I think this is, when the stream first comes in, you get a connection open and then you start to do your stream. So if it's not pooling, that's going to be bad.
Yes, I think it's a normal HTTP connection. So the first segment will always be like this.
But is it creating a new HTTP connection for each segment? Because that's how it looks.
From the broadcaster to the orchestrator, the first segment will open a connection, and then hopefully it'll continue to reuse it as it sends subsequent segments.
Yes.
You say hopefully. Is that
Well, I can't. I didn't look at the code. I don't know for certain. I'm pretty sure that when you look at the data you're showing, that that first segment being slow shows the signs of an HTTP setup, and then you see every subsequent segment sent is fast. And again, I think it's not including that setup because it's reusing that same connection.
Right.
With WebSockets, you
But I
have
think if you
tunneling. It keeps the connection online all the time. So
Right. So it just comes down
yeah,
to
I
like,
mean, the basic workflow is, gRPC is a stateful connection, whereas HTTP is stateless. It's, open close use cases. So, but again, you can use it and optimize it. I just don't know how much that has been done with Go Livepeer. I think the connection pooling would be a massive upgrade to that first segment problem.
maybe you can try.
I was gonna say, if it's open, does it stay open then? Like, let's say you, forgetting segments, but you go to a new stream and it's from the same broadcaster, would that connection be the same connection, or is that a separate connection then?
It again depends on how the application was written. I don't know the exact logic in Go Livepeer for the connection management. I'd have to look at that. But that would be the first place I would look anytime they're opening connections. It probably is by stream, if I would have to guess.
Well, I think there is nothing on the application. It's just the HTTP protocol that will keep the connection and timeout when there is no flow coming. So when
Yeah, but
there
in
is
the
like
application though, you can still open up the connections. You can set timeout settings and read timeouts and all that. So like that's the stuff I'm talking about in the code, the way they set it up and manage it.
but I don't think that's the problem here, because it's happening on O/T connections as well.
Well, it's two different things happening. You
It's
got
the
two
same.
different things.
It's the same. It's the same. It's HTTP connection too.
With a remote OT, you're going to have the same tax on the HTTP connection that's set up. But if it's a local OT, you won't pay that tax.
Yeah.
Right, but we're still getting the delay, right? Like, I'm wondering.
Well, there's two, because one is from the connection, and then the other one is that it does take some time to set up that first stream with from the NVIDIA side, the CUDA setup. I don't know if it's CUDA or whatever it's doing. So you have two different delays.
Yeah. I don't know if we can put a reverse proxy in front of the orchestrator with. Yeah, it will add the same. Well, maybe not. Yeah, with a reverse proxy to have a WebSocket.
Well, couldn't you
but
just
the client?
Couldn't you just fix? Couldn't you just fix this problem by opening up a stream to your transcoder the moment you get orchestrator requests? Send a blank stream segment that's cached, and then if you get chosen, you're already fired up. You've got your connection open. You've already got the first segment transcoded, and away you go.
Yeah, it's cool, but it sends blank data, so that's not really good.
What's not good?
You said you send blank data, I mean,
blank,
to keep the connection up.
Yeah, like to establish the connection so that we don't have to wait for because it takes 500 milliseconds to choose a transcode, to choose an orchestrator. But during that time, you know that the orchestrator request came in. So couldn't you spool up the engine, if you will, like prior to getting selected for the stream, so that if you do get the stream, then you're already at.
The challenge is tight in that with that setup, if you know there's enough work, if there's enough demand that you can continually send streams to the orchestrator, that's not a problem. The problem is when you have 100 orchestrators and 3 or 4 of them are busy, but the others are idling. You know what I mean? They'll go idle for a period of time. And what you're saying is send a test stream to warm up the engine. But if all you do is receive test streams to warm up the engine, you're going to spend a lot of compute on those transcoders just to do nothing, just to make sure they're hot, even though they don't need to be, right? So you need it to be elastic, where if the demand is there, the connections will remain open, right? But if the demand dissipates, you want the connections to go away as well, right? Because no sense in keeping compute running when the demand's not there. So you need that elasticity. It has to work both ways.
So that's why there is WebSocket to send continuous data. With WebSocket, you start the connection between the client and the server, and the connection keep connected. So you can send a flow through WebSocket.
Yeah, we would have to see the difference in delay between the HTTP establishing the HTTP connection and the delay between the CUDA cores starting up, because I have a feeling that the CUDA problem is actually bigger than the HTTP problem. In which case, like, you know, like if it takes 50 milliseconds to establish an HTTPS connection or something, like, that's not a big deal. But the problem is it's taking, you know, an extra second sometimes, or an extra like second and a half to rev up the transcoder. That it's, you know, I don't think it ever really takes a second and a half to establish an HTTPS connection, would it? Like,
it could.
It could, yeah. There is a lot of with HTTPS 2.0. There is a lot of handshake between the client and the server.
Yeah, a lot of messaging back and forth.
Yes.
Like, you know, with the new version, as we talked about with Quick and HTTP3, is that there's one connection, one message back. You send one request and then you're connected and it's secure. Whereas with today, with HTTP and SSL or TLS, it's basically you send a message, it sends back some messages, it, you know, goes back and forth. So there's quite a bit of network latency that's involved. So, you know, it will be variable. So it could go up to, you know, 1 second, 1.5 seconds, which is why you want a connection pool.
right. Well, there you go.
Nobody said running an orchestrator was easy.
Yeah.
Well, and Titan, I think also to your point about like getting the like the GPU fired up and hot. I don't know if it has to create one like a fresh, if it's part of like for every stream or segment there's stream that comes in, and then it's fired up and hot, because otherwise you'd be good as long as you have a stream going, or you want to run some, if it's just a matter of like, oh, it wasn't doing anything, it needs to warm up, then you could just run like a 120p stream just continually just to have the GPU running. But I don't know what's really going on in the background, but I think that's more along the lines of what you were thinking, right? Well, it's a waste, yeah, but
the problem
it's a waste on one hand, but it would be a benefit if it doesn't.
The problem is my London node has 13 transcoders, so it almost never, when a new stream comes in, it almost never goes to the same transcoder, right? So it's always spinning up new HTTP like new connections for basically every stream that comes in. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it hasn't been too detrimental. I don't think I lose that many streams based on the first segment. But I also don't know the degree to which the broadcaster will swap off you based on the first segment. Because I sometimes send back segments, like Brad here. He sent back 4 seconds on a 2-second segment, but yet the stream continued, right? So, like, does the orchestrator or is the broadcaster, are they that lenient on the first segment, or like how strict are they on these real time coming back, right? Are they strict at all? Because they are dual transcoding. They're transcoding their own stuff in parallel, right?
Livepeer, you're saying, is transcoding in parallel? I don't think they are anymore.
Livepeer Inc. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I think they stopped doing that.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I think that was also part of the reason that they had their hardware for sale. Yeah.
Oh.
They got out of that business. It's all going to us now, man.
Oh, that's why they're selling all that stuff. thought they were just upgrading.
No, and I mean, aside from that, I'm pretty sure at one point it was mentioned that they're no longer doing it. I don't know if it was, I don't know where I heard it though.
It made sense to do it in the beginning. I mean, back when I joined, it was I was getting like 60 streams to like a connection that could barely handle it, and it was like blowing up. And I was like, "Oh, this is great." So I don't think I was doing it good enough, you know. So now, yeah, I think that there's enough supply on the network where, funny enough, the chicken and the egg problem, like it's actually enough supply in North America and Europe to actually handle demand on the network, whereas I don't think there was 3 years ago when I joined, right? Or not quite 3 years, but 2.5 years ago. It was like there's only like 8 performing orchestrators. So yeah, I think we've come a long way from the supply side. So it's a good thing that Livepeer Inc. has decided, hey, the public network is strong enough it can handle the work. So that's cool. But this first segment is still kind of like, I'd really like to fix it. It seems like a kind of a pain. But hey, maybe it's not that big of a deal. I don't know.
I was going to say, I mean, I know it does take longer, but I don't know if it's that much of a problem. I mean, sure, would I like it to go faster? Yes, but overall, the network seems to be working with that. So it's just a little extra delay at the beginning, but after that, things seem to go smoothly. So, and again, it's still getting for most streams, it's still you're well under real time. So I don't think it's a huge issue.
Yeah,
I mean,
fair enough.
Would it be better if there was none? Yes, but I don't know if I don't know if that's realistic or possible. But I don't think it's a huge deal unless you're right on the edge, and that would be that. Then having networking, things to worry about on it in addition to the startup delay.
Right. There you go. I guess we will fix it as it becomes an issue, but probably not really a big issue. I would also like to wrap back around to this StreamR network that Mike said about the streamer network data unions solve this issue, and the solution is solely based on orchestrator changes. You want to talk a little bit about how I know you've been just dying to use Streamer.
Well, no, I'm not saying I'm dying to, but it's one of those things where you come across a project that actually solves a specific problem. And I think in this case, it's similar to what we talked about. And I mentioned this in the performance and reliability board when we were talking about collecting performance data. And again, the whole point is that a lot of this stuff is private. People don't want to share this information. So how do you incentivize, like in our case, orchestrators? You want to know how many minutes are transcoded? You have 100 orchestrators, and the more orchestrators that participate in this data union, which would basically change it to go live here, but what it would be is each orchestrator would send at some point in the day how much streams they had, how much pixels, whatever the metrics we want to collect to give a more accurate reflection of the usage of the network. We collect that data from the orchestrators, since they're the ones ingesting it, and then they publish it to the streamer network. And it goes into this thing called a data union, which people could then pay to access the data union to query the data of the network. So it's like a marketplace for people that want the data and people that can publish the data. It's like a private way of incentivizing people to share data, not in a cringy way.
But you can't do it anonymously. Share the data anonymously.
Yeah, I mean, you as an orchestrator, let's say you wanted to publish your stream counts, your whatever the metrics you have, you can opt in, and there's no like tracing it. Like it's just an address, like an ETH address that streamer uses to say, oh, okay, you're publishing this data using this ETH address, and then when people access that data union, they also enter their ETH address so that they can pay to use it. Now, some data unions are free, so you might just have a free data union that anyone can query, at any time, and
Well,
orchestrators wouldn't. Go ahead.
The reason I was asking if it can be done anonymously is if there is an orchestrator that didn't want to share for whatever reason, that was traceable back to them, but it became part of the protocol where just that data is shared, but there was no way to know
I
who it
think if
came
you
from.
have your ETH address, you can create any ETH address you want, unless you tell somebody you have it. I don't know how anyone can trace it to you.
Right. I guess I guess where I'm really going with this is if everyone doesn't use it, how valuable is the data?
Well, exactly. Again, we would hope that as an orchestrator, you're participating in Livepeer. You want to generously share that information to help grow the network, right? If we could have a clear picture of what usage is on the network, that's important, right? In terms of optics, being able to say with high visibility that it's accurate. But to your point, if there's no one joining, and that's the incentive part, right, of having a data union, being able to pay orchestrators for sharing the data. I think that's the part that makes it more, Web3 centric. And, there was actually a podcast that I heard, Eric and the guy from Streamer talking about a use case with Livepeer. And I forget where I actually heard it, but that's where I keep thinking about it every time we talk about being able to share data. So you're right. If no one participates, then, does it really work? But it could be in tandem with the Livepeer broadcaster, right? Like, let's say the broadcaster decides to share some of the data, so like you could still get a good reflection of the network if the broadcaster is doing it, not just the orchestrators. I just thought, as an orchestrator centered group, that this might be a way that we could change Go Livepeer and potentially, fill a hole.
And it sounds like people can like Missouri, Osman up here earlier stated that one of the things is Missouri, I don't know how to say it, is advertising Livepeer's data, looking at the dashboard as it is, right? And it's like they would happily pay for that data, right?
That's right.
And if I can generate even just a little bit of income by turning on a flag and supplying this data, then the incentive is there, right?
Yep, that's my thought behind it. It sounds like a perfect match for what we're talking about.
Because Osman says, yeah, I think the data should be public. I think it should be mandatory for O's to publish how much work it's done. My only question was, how do you enforce that, right? He says, if you don't, you can't join in. But again, what does that mean? Like, if you don't publish the data, what can't you join, right? Livepeer is a permissionless public network. It's open source, right? You could just change the code. So you'd have to.
Yeah, it's an opt-in. It's an opt-in scenario, right? Orchestrators by default wouldn't be required to do that. So like you run the software the way you run it today, no difference. But when the feature gets added to support Streamer, you could turn a flag on to true and put your ETH address for your Streamer wallet or whatever, and boom, away it goes, right?
Yeah, and I think you'd get pretty high adoption for that.
I think so. I think quite a few of the top ones would share that data because it's valuable to see for everyone, for the health.
And that would be the most accurate information.
That's right.
Yeah. Because right now,
you could collect all the details too,
if you
renditions, whatever all the stuff.
But if it's not mandatory and it's opt-in, and you don't, and some orchestrators may opt in and then may opt out and then back in, it's going to then also skew the numbers as far as being able to see what the total use, what the actual use is, and then also what the trends are.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's definitely some creativity that has to happen with a low adoption rate. Obviously, if it's not worth it and orcs aren't seeing the value of doing it, then it's not going to work, right? But if there's, let's just say there's 50 or 75% adoption, you could still use that data to extrapolate and make better claims about the network versus trying to derive minutes from an ETH value. You know what I mean? I think there's definitely ways to make it more accurate and less prone to inaccuracies. It may not be perfect either, but it's definitely a step up from this.
Heteric. Okay. Did he say it again?
Hey,
Hey, buddy. Yeah.
heterotic.
Heterotic. There you go, buddy.
It's a string theory term. I'm a topologist here.
No worries. Yeah. Can you explain what you just said in chat there?
So this is very interesting conversation. I like this idea, and we're talking again about making it mandatory for orchestrators to publish. We say how much work it's done. I think that could be actually a qualitative rather than a quantitative declaration in an attestation framework. But either way, it's the publishing of that work and making it mandatory. And I think this is critical for answering all of these questions, but also leverageable in many ways, especially when we talk about machine learning, but also risk pool and other issues. But again, I think the key here is that we have this other recent development, technologically speaking, for inclusion proofs. So my question is there a way, and I believe there is, can you think of one? I don't know, I can't. To leverage inclusion proofs to provide the necessary portions of the data publicly for orchestrator proofs to be published in both quantitative and qualitative metadata that could be accessed by the system without actually exposing data that's not necessary, that's in the pipeline, but is not necessary for the orchestrator's proof and or any other proofs attached to the system. Like there's more ways to include proofs in this scheme, depending on your schema. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, yeah, we could go down a whole rabbit hole around this data.
2.5 years, baby.
Yeah. My only concern around going down the rabbit hole of collecting data from orchestrators and is I think in general we're probably just focusing, like it's good to focus on it because you want to see the data and the network and da da da. But like it's not like other platforms you can see the data anyway, right? Like it's not like Amazon publishes the amount of minutes they're transcoding and the amount of pixels and the income they're getting. Like even the income is like not, it's just like an embedded thing on their spreadsheet, probably lumped in with a bunch of other services, right? So like to a certain degree, I think it's good to get this data, but I would be more concerned about getting demand onto the network and focusing there because I feel like this is a problem for like 10 years down the road where it's like, hey, we really want to look into the deep dive, like behind the scenes of this thing. Whereas, I mean, right now we just lack adoption, right?
Well, think of it this way, Titan, and again, you talk about being able to quantify the actual cost savings of a stream and being able to quantify the performance and reliability. If you remember some of the conversations from Jarvis about what happens if I lose a segment, what does that mean? Like every segment matters. Like what kinds of privacy concerns can you provide? Like fraud and all these other types of capabilities. And what we said at that time was, if there was a marketplace where broadcasters can go and look at this reliability data, performance data, cost data. You could look at the GPU, you could look at the total capacity of the system. Like there's a whole lot of capabilities that getting this data unlocks for you so that you could start these conversations. But when you're operating in the blind, like, you can't really quantify those true savings.
And again, inclusion of qualitative data as well as quantitative data opens up IP framework, compositional framework for this pipeline. And that is a value add. Like A16Z just invested $54 million in product fit for the theory of the application. And we have these open source tools that have just been launched that like it literally could be an off the shelf, like just integrating several different things.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, I think. Oh, well, there you go. It is important. Who wants to start? Who wants to build it? Mike, I'd rather see.
I mean, I've
rather
got
see
parts of front end worth about $2,000. I've got $10,000 in funding from the Swarm Foundation. You guys just started a DAO. If there's anybody here who wants to help, I know that there's another group and other people who are interested from the Swarm community in these primitives and their application. So I think it's nascent. So if you guys have people to send our way, let's start doing it. Like there's nothing stopping us.
I think this is a perfect use case to try to, propose from the DAO perspective, like you said, this is something that seems like a problem, and is there somebody willing to take on that challenge? I'd be willing to participate. I don't think it's something that I want to do by myself, but if there's a collection of folks that feel like there's an opportunity here and they want to fill a need and potentially solve a problem and make some money having fun coding it, I'm game.
Because this would be a direct manipulation of Go Livepeer to add this feature, right?
Yeah. I mean, somewhere in the code, when the data is coming in, the stream's coming in, and you're collecting those metrics, it would basically be tallying them up, and at some periodic point in time, you'd basically make like a reward call, right? Like you'd make a call that says, "Here's what I have. Here's my data. Whatever we want to collect, whatever pertinent pieces of information that need to be in this data union." Obviously, that's a critical part of the data union. What are you collecting, right? And being able to do it in a passive way that does not affect stream processing whatsoever, right?
Are you gonna? Sorry, I missed a lot of that, so I'm not gonna try and rehash all of it. Is the data gonna just be like publicly available, or is it through
Well, the way streamer network works is that you basically, whoever builds the data union, which is the piece of the framework that they allow you to do, it's like a smart contract, and
Got it.
you publish this, and it basically says the orc node would be collecting metrics, and then it would submit some sort of JSON, if you will, that is
Yeah.
structured of like what data it's collecting that the data union expects, and then you post that each day to the smart contract, and then it does whatever it does to provide access through there's a marketplace, so people can access the data union. And again, if it's paid, you can go look at they have a website now where you can go look at the marketplace and see what data unions are there, and you can browse them and kind of start to connect to them and stuff if you wanted to. But obviously, if you're building an application like Livepeer Explorer, you would basically have some way to query it, get the data, and then use it on your UI and show your charts and whatever you're going to do. And the Masari is another example, right, where they'd be able to pay to access it. And then the cool part about it is when the people who access it are paying to use it and to access it, those incentives are sent to the orchestrators for publishing it. So there's an economic incentive for orchestrators to actively publish their data because they're going to get paid for it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I like that. I've just started the whole thought process of like not exactly what I've built, but building on what I've built on the testing to make it
Oh yeah,
completely publicly available so people can build dashboards. You can do whatever you want with it, right? It's just out there. But I have
data union is perfect for that.
absolutely nowhere to start, so I appreciate that.
Yeah, no doubt. I play around with all kinds of stuff, man. I love tinkering with technology, and that's one that I played with early on. And in fact, they have a node that you can run, and I know that I shared it with quite a few folks. We were running nodes, like you stake some streamer tokens to your node, and you can run it on your home. You can run it on your orc nodes. You can run it pretty much wherever you have infrastructure. And again, you're not going to get rich doing it, but it is definitely helping the streamer project, and you're getting incentives. You make $30 a month or $100 a month. It's it works out. Collect crumbs and dust every project you're working on.
Yeah, but it also provides, doesn't it also, wouldn't it also provide some of like the security blanket for, people like Jarvis to come look and say, I mean, he has more technical questions, but to at least go and say, look, this is a permissionless network, but it's performing, right?
Well,
And
right. You wanna be
nothing
able to
like
look
that
at
right
the
now. It's
actual
open
data.
source.
That's right. The actual data. And I want to, as a broadcaster, I want guarantees about reliability, performance. Like when an orc loses streams and he gets swapped, like these are the kinds of metrics that we can push into the data so that
Mhm.
it gives that insight we need. And you could do multiple data unions, right? It may just be a broadcaster focused one that says, here are the metrics the broadcaster has, and an orchestrator one, and then whomever's building the app could compose their app based on both of them and provide that intersection. So it's really good primitives and building blocks to sharing the data and then being able to collaborate and build on top of it.
Yeah. Yeah, that sounds great. I'll look at the docs, get lost for a few days, and I'll
Yeah,
out.
man. Good luck. That's a rabbit hole. I'll pull you out. I'll go look for you and pull, tie a string to you so I can pull you out.
I say we still prioritize lens stream because, like, I do want to stream there. I want to stream there today. Like, we should be streaming there right now.
I'm not building that. You gotta find somebody else.
So many projects, man. Not enough coders.
Yeah, that's
Not
too
enough
funny.
hours in the day.
No. Okay, cool.
Right.
Well, we've been at this for a while, so let's go ahead and wrap it up there. Do appreciate your time building the world's open infrastructure layer. So thanks for coming, and we'll see you all next week. Cheers.
Adios. Thanks, guys.
Bye, everyone.